Good morning. Good morning. This is Jameson Rowe, Cleveland, Ohio. Am I going to be the reader today?
Would you like to be?
Nope.
I'm happy to do it, my friend. But you're also more than welcome if you want to take any, some, all, or part of it. This has always been a team effort.
Hey, if I this say you're up if you want me to come jump in, but I'm definitely available if we need me.
All right, I'll take it today. Maybe you can take it next week if Cassandra and or Ron uh don't want to take it.
Amazing.
Amazing indeed. All right, well, let's get our Saturday kicked off. Let me start out by sharing the screen and let's see the screen that we want to share. Let me get the participants out. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, I see a screen. It's a little small. I mean, if you go full screen, maybe that'll help on your page.
Is it really small?
Well, it's narrow, maybe a quarter of the page, if not. So I just see like the very top right now. So maybe if you just maximize your window, it might help.
Okay, let me play with that a little bit before I get started so that it makes it easier. Um, and I'm just, you see
There's a
me adjust.
symbol in the middle of your page of the dark area that looks like a full size page besides the one that says rotate or it says percentage 200%. Oh, that might be it too. You're like 200% also.
Correct. And does it get better if I make it smaller?
Yes, and also if you make your main page that you're sharing full screen or bigger, it might. But that's good enough. That's actually good enough right there. Excuse me. That'll work.
Yeah,
That'll
it
work.
is.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
All
You could
right.
go. You
Now
could
I
even go
just,
down a little bit more if you need to or can in the Zoom. But that's good right there. We're good. Or 100%.
all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and Jameson, you had left off at page 194 at the top where it says how to play the bank.
Yes, sir. That's it. That's an amazing subject, and I think Mr. Wilner, you've got this because you're definitely a 30-year plus veteran in this field and have been playing this game for a long time.
Playing the bank, yes, indeed. In fact, the bank's got a great deal going on if you really think about it. And the more you think about it, the more you do want to play the bank because the bank, which is where most people deposit their paychecks and their, I guess I would call it idle cash. And when the money is there, they get paid 0 point nothing percent for leaving that money, but people do that because they believe it's safe. And of course, it's easy then to write checks, send Zells, and manage your money. However, while that money is deposited in the bank turns around and lends it out. And it lends it out at today, probably anywhere between 6 and 7%. And so they make 6 and 7% on the money that they have no cost to obtain. Then, when the money comes in on the payments, they lend that out again. And the bank is said to lend out the same funds about 10 times, 9 to 11 times or more. And if each time they got 7% times 10 times, they're making about 70% on the money. And now you know why the banks have the best locations, the biggest buildings, the nicest real estate, and of course, the biggest profits. So imagine if you could be a bank. And this is what we're going to talk about today without stealing any thunder from the book. Let's go ahead and start our read here. How to play the bank. We are on page 194. This is in chapter 9 of the most recent edition of the book. For those of you who don't have the book, in fact, let me do this. One last thing before I get started. I'm going to put the link to the book in the chat so that anyone who wants to have access to the book and the link can have it whenever they want, and they can follow along as well, but they can also read it throughout the week. So it's in the chat now. How to play the bank. After the 1986 Tax Reform Act became law, there were opportunities everywhere. Real estate, stocks, and businesses were available for low prices. While it was devastating for many people on the left side, i.e., employees and self-employed, it was wonderful for me because I could utilize my skills as a B, business owner, and I, investor, to take advantage of the opportunities around me. Instead of being greedy and chasing everything that looked like a good deal, I decided to focus on real estate. Why real estate? For 5 simple reasons. Number 1, pricing. Real estate prices were so low that mortgage payments were far lower than the fair market rent for most properties. These properties made great economic sense, which meant there was little risk. It was like going to a sale at a retail store when everything was 50% off. Financing. The banks give me a loan on real estate, but not on stocks. Since I wanted to buy as much as I could while the market was depressed, I bought real estate so that what cash I had could be combined with financing through banks. For example, I say I had $10,000 in savings to invest. If I bought stocks, I could only buy $10,000 worth of stocks. I could have bought on margin and put up only part of the total cost, and the broker company would have loaned me the remainder, but I wasn't financially strong enough to risk a downturn in the market, which is when they issue margin calls. With $10,000 in real estate and a 90% loan, I could buy a $100,000 property. If both markets went up 10%, I would have made $1,000 in stocks, but $10,000 in real estate. Man, he's singing my song. Number 3, taxes. If I made $1 million in profit from stocks, I'd have to pay nearly 30% in capital gains tax on my profit. But in real estate, the $1 million profit could be rolled tax-free into the next real estate transaction. On top of that, I could depreciate the property for even greater tax savings. Important note, here comes a disclaimer. An investment must make economic sense outside of the tax benefit for me to invest in it. By the way, great rule. Any tax benefit only makes the investment more attractive. Number 4, cash flow. Rents had not declined, even though real estate prices had declined. This put a lot of money in my pocket, paid for the mortgages, and most importantly, bought me time to wait until real estate prices went up again. When they did, I was able to sell. Although I carried large debt, it never hurt me because the rents were far greater than the cost of carrying the loan. And number 5, an important opportunity, and an opportunity to become a bank. Real estate allowed me to become a bank, something I wanted to do since 1974. The rich create money. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I wrote about how the rich create money and often play the role of banker. The following is a simple example that almost anyone can follow. Let's say I find a house worth $100,000 and I get a heck of a deal and only pay $80,000 for it. I pay $10,000 down payment and get a $70,000 mortgage I'm responsible for. Then I advertise the house is available for sale for its appraised price of $100,000. I use the magic words in the ad, house for sale, owner desperate, no bank qualifying, low down payment, easy monthly payments. The phone rings like crazy. The house is sold on what is called a wrap or a lease purchase contract. In simple terms, I sell the house for $100,000 IOU. This is what the transaction looks like. My balance sheet. $100,000 IOU, from the buyer of the property, $70,000 liability for the mortgage. And that means, of course, I have a net equity of $30,000. Now, the buyer's balance sheet, he has $100,000 IOU. And in assets, of course, he'll have the property. This transaction is then registered with the title and escrow office, which often handles the payments. If the person defaults on the $100,000, I simply foreclose and sell the property to the next person who wants a low down payment, easy monthly payments, home to live in. People line up for the opportunity to buy a home on these terms. The net effect is that I have created $30,000 in my asset column for which I am paid interest, just like a bank gets paid interest for the loans it makes. I was beginning to be a bank, and I loved it. Remember that rich dad said, be careful when you take on debt. If you take on debt personally, make sure it's small. If you take on large debt, make sure someone else is paying for it. In the language of the B, the business owner, and the I laid off my risk or hedged my risk to another buyer. That is the game in the world of finance. This type of transaction is done all over the world, yet wherever I go, people come up to me and say those magic words. You can't do that here. Mindset. What most small investors fail to realize is that many large commercial buildings are bought and sold exactly in the manner described above. Sometimes they go through a bank, but many times they do not. It's like saving $30,000 without saving. I previously wrote why the government does not give people a tax advantage for saving money. Well, I doubt if banks will ever ask the government to do so because your savings are their liability. The United States has a low savings rate simply because banks do not want your money or need your savings to do well. So this example is a way of playing bank and increasing your savings without a great deal of effort. The cash flow from this $30,000 is reflected as follows on my income statement. Money from the asset, $30,000, goes into my income account. There are several interesting things about this diagram. I determine the interest rate for the $30,000. Often it's 10%. Most banks pay you less than 5% on your savings. And now you can see how this book was written a little while ago. So even if I did use my own $10,000 as a down payment, which I try not to do, the interest on it is often better than the bank would pay me. It's like creating $20,000, $30,000 less the $10,000 down payment that didn't exist before. Just like the bank creates an asset and then charges interest on it. This $20,000 was created tax-free. For the average person in the E quadrant, it would take nearly $40,000 of wages to be able to set aside $20,000. And that's a big maybe. Income earned as an employee is a 50-50 proposition, with the government taking its 50% through withholding tax before you ever see it. All property taxes, maintenance, and management fees are now the responsibility of the buyer because I sold the property. And there's more. Many creative things can be done on the B and the I side to create money from nothing, just by playing the role of bank. A transaction like this may take a week to a month to put together. The question is, how long would it take most people to earn an additional $40,000 so they can save $20,000 after taxes and expenses? Answer that question. For most people, not only would it take way longer than a month, it would take way longer than a year. And in many cases, and I've watched this happen in the mortgage industry, working with savers and investors, that sometimes it simply does not happen. The income stream is sheltered. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I briefly covered why the rich use corporations. And these are the reasons. Number one, asset protection. If you're rich, people tend to want to take what you have through litigation. But the rich often don't own anything in their names. Their assets are held in trusts and corporations to protect them. Income protection. By passing the income stream from assets through your own corporation, much of the income that is normally taken from you by the government through taxes can be sheltered. The harsh reality is that for employees, the sequence goes like this: earn, taxed, spend. As an employee, your earnings are taxed and taken through withholding taxes even before you get your paycheck. So if an employee is paid $30,000 next year, by the time the government gets through with it, it's down to $15,000. Remember, that's state, local, sales tax, all the taxes that the government, we don't feel it all at once. And with this $15,000, you must then pay your mortgage and all your other expenses. If you pass your income through a corporate entity first, this is what the pattern looks like, and it's reversed. You earn, spend, and then get taxed. By passing the income stream through $30,000 through a corporation, you can expense much of the earnings through or before the government gets their hands on it. If you own the corporation, you also make the rules as long as it conforms within the tax code. For example, if you make the rules, you can write into the bylaws of your company that childcare is part of the employment package. The company may pay $400 per month per child for your child care out of pre-tax dollars. If you pay for it with after-tax dollars, you have to effectively earn almost $800 to pay for the same childcare. The list is long and the requirements are specific as to what an owner of a corporation can write off that an employee cannot. Certain travel expenses can be written off with pre-tax dollars, as long as you can document that you conducted business, such as a board meeting on the trip. Just make sure you follow the rules. Even retirement plans are different for owners and employees in many instances. Having said all of this, I want to stress that you must follow the required regulations to make these expenses deductible. I believe in taking advantage of the legal deductions allowed by the tax code, but I do not recommend breaking the law. Again, the key to taking advantage of some of these provisions in which quadrant you earn the income from, the key to taking advantage of some of these provisions is which quadrant you earn your income from. I wanted to make that emphasis. If all your income is generated as an employee from a company that you don't own or control, there's little income or asset protection available to you. That is why I recommend that if you're an employee, keep your job, but begin to spend time in the B or I quadrants. Your road to faster freedom is through these two quadrants. To feel more financially secure, the secret is to operate in more than one quadrant. That, if you have the physical book, is a line that you should highlight. The secret is to operate in more than one quadrant. And just a little comment. In fact, open it up for a little bit of discussion as well. Tell me if you have, in addition to, in fact, so let's start out by saying what quadrant or quadrants are you in today? Okay. Some of us are in one, some of us are in two, some of us are in three, and you could even be in four. And there's my answer right there. I used to kid around and say that I'm terminally unemployable, but being self-employed, like being a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, Those are roles where you're functioning independently, but still trading hours for dollars. The day that I take off, like I just recently did, went away for 2 weeks, that income stopped. When you have a business, the income from my business did not stop. And the income from my investments, of course, could care less. But the beautiful thing about having both in the S quadrant to some extent, but completely in the business quadrant, you can deduct a lot of your expenses. Now imagine if you take a trip like I did, conduct some business while you're gone, and a large portion of that trip is now deductible. And I always, used to say that if you looked at my tax returns and you looked at the lifestyle, you would think that they were not the same person. But it's exactly because of these rules that Robert Kiyosaki is talking about in the cash flow quadrants. So next subject, next area, free land. A while back, Kim and I wanted some property away from the hustle and bustle of the crowded city. We got the urge to own some acreage with tall oak trees and a stream running through it. We also wanted privacy. We found a 20-acre parcel priced at $75,000. The seller was willing to take 10% down and carry the balance at 10% interest. It was a fair transaction. The problem was that it violated the rule on debt that Rich Dad taught me, which was be careful when you take on debt. If you take on debt personally, make sure it's small. If you take on large debt, make sure someone else pays for it. We passed on the $75,000 piece of land and went looking for property that made more sense. To me, $75,000 is a lot of debt because our cash flow would have looked like the next diagram. Zero income and expenses would be as a result of the liabilities, the $75,000 mortgage. And remember, Rich Dad's rule, if you take on debt and risk, then you should be paid. If you take on debt, another highlighter, if you take on debt and risk, then you should be paid. Well, in this transaction, I would have taken on both the debt and the risk, and I was the one paying for it. Violation of the rule. About a month later, we found a piece of land for $115,000 that was even more beautiful. It was 87 acres of tall oak trees with a stream, and it had a house. I offered the seller full price if he would give me my terms, which he did. To make a long story short, we spent a few dollars fixing the house and sold the house and 30 acres for $215,000. Using the same idea of low down payment and easily monthly payments, we kept 57 acres for ourselves. How cool is that? He divided the property, bought 87 acres with a house, and he could have just as well rented it also. That might have paid for his debt. But obviously a nice transaction, and now he has a free and clear piece of land, only 57 acres. This is what the transaction looked like on my balance sheet. $215,000 assets, $115,000 liabilities. The new owner was thrilled because it was a beautiful home and he was able to buy it for almost nothing down. As an aside, he also bought it through his company for use as a corporate retreat for his employees, which allowed him to depreciate the purchase price as a company asset, deduct the maintenance costs, and deduct the interest payments. His interest payments more than paid for my interest payments. A few years later, he sold some of his company's stock and paid off the loan to me, and I, in turn, paid off my loan. The debt was gone. With an extra $100,000 in profit I made, I was able to pay the taxes from the gain of the land and the house. A net result was zero debt $15,000 profit after taxes, and 57 acres of gorgeous land. It was like being paid for getting what you want. Today, my balance sheet from that one transaction looks like this. Assets, 57 acres of land, $15,000 of cash, 0 liabilities. The IPO. An initial public offering, IPO, or taking a private company public through a stock offering is based on the same principles as the transaction described in the previous section. While the words and market, the players are different, the basic underlying principles remain the same. When my organization forms a company to take public, we often create value out of thin air, even though we try to base it on an accurate opinion of the fair market value. We take the offering to the public market, and instead of this equity being sold to one person, it is sold to thousands of people as shares of a company. The value of experience. I recommend people start in the B quadrant before proceeding to the I quadrant. Regardless of whether the investment is in real estate, a business, stocks, or bonds, there is an underlying comprehensive business sense that is essential to being a sound investor. Some people have this comprehensive sense, but many do not, primarily because school trains us to be highly specialized, not comprehensively trained. For those thinking about moving to the B or I quadrants, I recommend starting small and taking your time. Do bigger deals as your confidence and experience grow. Remember, the only difference between an $80,000 deal and an $800,000 deal is a zero. The process is going from a small deal is much the same as going through a much larger multi-million-dollar public offering. It is only a matter of more people, more zeros, and more fun. Once a person gains experience and a good reputation, it takes less and less money to create bigger and bigger investments. Many times it takes no money to make a lot of money. Why? Experience is valuable. As stated earlier, if you know how to make money with money, people and money will flock to you. Start small and take your time. Experience is more important than money. So we are now on page 204. In case you joined us a little bit late, we are at the top of the page in chapter 9. It is simple and easy. And by the way, here's a big mindset shift. A lot of people start out with the belief that business is complicated or complex, finances is complicated or complex. What if you started out with the belief that it's simple and you just have to figure out the simple steps and then break those steps down, but you come in thinking that it is simple and easy? So, in theory, the numbers and transactions on the right side of the cash flow quadrant are simple, regardless of whether you're talking about stocks, bonds, real estate, or businesses. To be financially well off simply means being able to think differently, to think from different quadrants, and to have the courage to do things differently. To me, one of the hardest things a person who is new to this way of thinking has to go through is the countless number of people who will tell you you can't do that. So it's not the thing that's hard, it's the people that surround you. And by the way, just a side comment, I was listening to a podcast yesterday. There's a great podcast that I recommend. It's called Entrepreneurs on Fire, EOF. John Lee Dumas has been around doing this podcast for a long time. He's a young guy who's now, financially independent, retired just from this podcast and the coaching that he does with it for entrepreneurs. And he says, and he asks this question, what is your BS? And before you get offended, he says BS is your belief system. And a lot of people's BS holds them back. And think about that from a day-to-day basis, because it's the BS of people thinking that things are complex and complicated that holds them often from even trying. One other thing to keep in mind while we're talking about that, and every single one of his podcasts, he says that, and he reminds you, remember, ladies and gentlemen, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And one of the things I like about this group of individuals, entrepreneurs, is that I'm always looking to increase my average, right? And look around who I'm spending time with, who is bringing me up and who is bringing me down. Now, you don't have to cut them out of your life or anything. Just don't spend a lot of time with the people that bring you down. So back to this. And I just want to read that last sentence again. To me, one of the hardest things a person who is new to this way of thinking has to go through the countless number of people who will tell you you can't do it. I can't tell you. I lost count years ago of the people who told me that I couldn't do what I was doing. And 30 years later, a lot of those people are going, wow, he was lucky. Hey, he could do it after all. If you overcome that kind of limited thinking and seek out people who say to you, yes, I know how to do that, I'd be happy to teach you, your life will be much easier, i.e., he just told you the value, the incredible value of having a coach, a mentor, somebody in your life like the Rich Dad. The laws. I started this chapter with the Tax Reform Act of 1986. By the way, it's about to be 40 years ago. We're coming up on 2026 in 84 more days. While that was a significant rule change, and by the way, I remember when that happened, it won't be the last. I only used the Tax Reform Act as an example of how powerful some rules and laws can be. If a person is to be successful in the B or I quadrant, he or she needs to be aware of market forces and any changes in the law that affect those market forces. And by the way, just as a little side note for some of the folks here that might not even be 40 years old, but who might not have been in business, or especially the Tax Reform Act was a major bill. It was a sweeping act. But what I remember the most, because I was in real estate at that time, prior to the act being enacted, real estate, just like it is today, was the most tax advantaged asset class that you could own. In fact, there were laws which were eliminated with the Tax Reform Act in 1986 that it was worth buying losing cash flow because the tax write-off was more than the amount lost. So why would somebody buy a losing property, for example? Well, if the property lost $100 a month in real cash flow, but gave you $1,000 in write-offs, and you were a doctor, a business owner, somebody that had a lot of income, that $900 of tax shelter was a really big benefit. So that inflated the price of real estate up until that point, because people were buying even losing properties because of the tax write-offs. And there were limited partnerships that were sold, that were set up to lose money so that people would get even more tax write-offs. And when this act came, all of those limited partnerships and REITs that existed back then, they plummeted in value. In fact, across the board, people started unloading real estate, because who wants to lose money on a monthly basis if there's no tax write-off multiplying that, that effect? So I just wanted to put that in the perspective, because it was a major big deal. And it was one of the greatest opportunities, though, when they enacted it and the prices went down, just like Robert Kiyosaki's talking. He made a bloody fortune in 1986, 87, 88, and 89. And I remember it was good times if you were a smart real estate investor, as opposed to all of the investors that weren't really in real estate but just bought it for the write-offs. So back to the book, paragraph 2. Today in America, there are thousands upon thousands of pages of tax law. That's just for the IRS alone. The federal laws come to more than 1.2 million pages of laws. And by the way, that was back then. It's got worse. It would take the average reader 23,000 years to read the entire US IRS code. Every year, more laws are created and repealed or amended. It would take more than a full-time job just to keep up with the amendments. Every time someone tells me that's against the law, I reply by asking them if they had read every line of the code in America. If they say yes, I leave slowly, backing up towards the door. Never turn your back on someone who thinks they know every law. To be successful on the right side requires seeing 5% with your eyes and 95% with your mind. Remember when we did that? That was another highlighter. 5% with your eyes, 95% with your mind. Understanding the laws and market forces is vital to financial success. Great transfers of wealth often occur when laws and markets change. So it is important to pay attention if you want to have those changes work in your favor and not against you. P.S. Remember the saying, this happened for me, not to me. And if you look at everything that way, like Robert Kiyosaki must have said that to himself, how does this happen for me? Even though he may have had properties, but if he followed the rich dad rule, he would not have bought any properties for the tax laws that lost money. And I'm just writing a little note to myself to remind myself, and I'm going to post it in front of me. 5% eyes, 95% financials, right? 5% eyes, 95% with your mind. And that's the numbers. Page 205, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, does anyone want to come out and have any comments about what we're talking about? I want to live that opportunity. Fernando, are people able to unmute to be able to either ask questions or say any insights or ahas? Were there any ahas in today's reading?
Happy Saturday, Eric. It looks like the chat, there's information in the chat here and the participation of our reading this morning. Great read, as a matter of fact. The microphones are open, cameras are open. If anybody wants to comment from what we're learning this morning, it really, see, real estate for me, it's something that the way I think about real estate is you being our master leader in guiding us with the instructions of real estate. And that's a good thing to have. So the 5 people closest to you make you or break you, right? When it comes to real estate, Eric, I definitely respect your wisdom, Mr. Lou Brown as well. You guys provide so much to us in regards to, the conversation that you have with one of our potential home buyers the other day. I was taking a lot of notes, and what I'm reading here is what I was hearing you say of that conversation in regards to keys to home ownership. Uh, Network marketing is where I really connect the dots of the B and I quadrants. Because the way you see real estate properties is the way you see the people that you associate with. And again, I go back to saying what you just said earlier. The 5 people closest to you will determine your level of success. So I always try to aim as high as I can when I meet people to be able to see if they meet the criteria, like anybody would look in real estate, a property, right? So when we establish relationships with someone, it's like establishing a relationship with a property. And I mean, what it will take in order for you to make things work. So I've learned a lot today. 5% eyes, 95% mind. That's why we got to gear ourselves from being emotionally involved in decisions. We got to see the logistics in order for us to be able to appreciate the value of time and money. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Fernando. That's great insight. And you know, I had an eighth degree black belt instructor when I was getting my black belt, and he often would say, sometimes, because a lot of this is, it's important to have repetition, right? To doing it over and over, over and over, and that's how you get the practical experience. You get the mental muscle and so forth. And he always used to say, because a lot of times he would teach something, and for example, this thing, 5% eyes, 95% mind, was way back in the book. This came, several chapters ago. And he would always say, as we were practicing the basic moves over and over and over again, and then he would say, sometimes we don't need to learn more. We need to be reminded of what we already know so that we can implement it. And so that's why I think it's cool that, for example, in the podcast, John Lee Dumas, he says in every single one of his podcasts, either at the very beginning or at the very end, remember, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I actually sat down one day and I wrote down who were the people that I spent the most time with in a given month. And then I circled the ones that brought my average up. And then I drew a line through the ones that brought my average down, because I wanted to focus on building my 5. And again, we don't need to be taught that. Most people already know it, but sometimes we need to be reminded. And that's the cool.
Exactly, Eric. And there's a saying from Bruce Lee that talks about what you just said. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that's why I think
Yes.
a lot of us complicate our lives because we think we got to learn 10,000 things, like the tax codes you were talking about. A million, what, 200,000? I mean, who's going to really go over the entire, tax codes? They're constantly changing. You just learn the basics. And once you learn the basics, highlight the basics that work for you, because everybody has their own, that we've got to create our own experience. And once we master that experience, find the collaboration of other people's experiences in what you're trying to strengthen your skills in, and learn from them, and rely on their strength and their abilities. And that's how I feel, the way we are and the way we work together, Eric. That's why you and I have known each other for so many years, because you bring a lot to the table in your expertise. And I'm hoping that I do the same thing back to you. But that's the objective of collaborating with others that know how to master their skills, and collaborate with each other to be able to get the job done. So I give you kudos, Eric. Thank you so much. Jameson's got his hand up.
Well, ditto, Fernando. Thank you for that. And absolutely, I look at you as someone who adds to the equation. You've been there, done that once before as an entrepreneur, and I know that I'm always learning things from you as well. So thank you for being, part of my inner circle. Jameson.
Eric, I'm here in the beautiful Ohio. Let me see. Oh, I gotta turn it around. Anyway, I'll turn it back off. A couple of things that stood out, and we'll go back to what we just add on to what you were saying. One of the things, as an example, earlier in the chapters, Robert Kiyosaki talks about who you're surrounded by, and also one of the things he did earlier on is he talked about the bankers and your like insurance agents,
Right.
how they're your only access to financial knowledge, and who you surround yourself with, the quality of your experts determines also the quality of your wealth, your wealth, because you're limited by their experience and back to the tax code. So you definitely have to upgrade not only your friends, but your financial intelligence through your leverage through your professionals. So
Great
one
point.
time, one of my other authors that I read about, he says he was making, let's say, $38,000 a year. So he had one type of tax professional because he operated in that realm. But as soon as he jumped to, let's say, $60,000 or $70,000, he had to get a new professional because, like, you can't do that. Like, you can't take that off because his experience was limited to what in the realm that he specialized in. So as he grew in wealth, he had to change professionals to be able to take advantage of that. And I'm sure you've seen that in your own development and or working with other professionals, how they have to go above and beyond where they're at. They have to hire a better team, like a bigger team or a better team that's more skilled and professional. And we have access, one of the things that we have access to, I have access to, and this platform has access to, are professionals at every level to grow with you instead of have to be limited to wherever your access is at. Thank you.
That's a really great point. That you can apply that rule of five to a lot of areas. Who are the 5 people that have the biggest financial impact on me? Who are the 5 people that have the most nutritional impact on me? Who are the people that love to go out, drink, party, and bring your average down, versus the people who are healthy, exercise, tell you about good nutrition? That rule of 5 is actually a really good one, and you bring out a great point that you can point that at any particular goal you have. And I would do that for every goal. Who are the 5 people that can help me the most? And then start the same way they do in the draft, right? In professional sports. Every year they pick somebody new or a couple new people, and guess what? They chop off a couple of the old people who aren't helping them bring their average up to become champion teams. So kind of a great rule. You see that it's applied all over the place. That was a good point. And in fact, and I'll just tell a quick story because this is part of the same podcast that I was talking about. Pace Morby is a kid who is a simple rehab construction contractor who literally was, paycheck to paycheck, but he was very good, and he was very well respected because, he showed up on time. He always came in under budget. He was well sought after, and he was making great money, but he didn't have a lot of money left over. And so he went to his dad and he said, "Listen, I'm already working 6 days a week, and how do I make more money?" And his dad, who was also a previous old-fashioned contractor, said, "Well, sometimes, I would skip church and, work half Sundays." And this is not what Pace was looking for. And he realized that, all love and family aside, that his father had given him as much information or as much guidance as he could. And if he wanted to go to the next level, that wasn't the information or guidance that he needed. He needed to find somebody that was already doing what he wanted to do. So he was talking to one of the people that hired him to rehab their properties. And after he did a couple of jobs for this lady, she said, "Listen, you're much more than a contractor. You are anything but a contractor, and here's what I want you to do." And she gave him the instructions of how to go find the next deal. And on the next deal, he made $30,000 in about 10 hours worth of work. He made $30,000, which was much more than he had left over, or that he would make in a month. So he did that job. He was all happy, and he came back and he said, "What's the next rehab you want me to do?" And she goes, "Didn't you learn anything? It takes you $30,000 to make in a month working as a contractor. It took you 10 hours to make $30,000 finding one deal. You're fired as my contractor, and I'm doing you a favor. go out and find more deals for us. And today he now sits on a portfolio of hundreds of millions of dollars because of that, changing the mindset, changing the 5 people, right, where you get your information. So that's probably, I'm going to say, the biggest underlying message in today's reading, besides the fact that you want to be the bank, right? And you understand now why, but the mindset, right? What's your BS? Is it good or is it bad? So let me get back, because we only got 10 minutes left, and I want to try to see how close to the end of the chapter I can get. The government needs your money. I believe in paying taxes. I know the government provides many important and vital services essential for a well-run civilization. Unfortunately, in my opinion, government is too big, mismanaged, and has made too many promises it cannot keep. But it's not only the fault of the politicians and the lawmakers in office today. Most of the financial problems we face today were created by their predecessors. Unfortunately, if lawmakers want to keep their jobs, they can't tell the public the truth. If they did, they'd be thrown out of office because the masses still depend on the government to solve their financial and medical problems. Government cannot. In the meantime, government will have to continue to increase taxes even if the politicians promise not to. That's why Congress passed the Tax Reform Act of 1986. It needed to plug a tax loophole in order to collect more in taxes. Many Western governments must continue to collect even more taxes to prevent a default on some of the promises made long ago, such as Medicare and Social Security, as well as federal pensions for millions of federal workers. As the deficit grows, retirement funds, 401k plans in America, or superannuation funds in many other countries will begin to shrink because they are subject to market fluctuations. How many times have you heard the sad but true joke of a 401k program turning into a 201k program? Mutual funds will begin to liquidate their stocks in order to pay for sell orders from baby boomers who need to use the money for retirement. Baby boomers will suddenly be stuck with huge capital gains taxes from the gains accrued by these mutual funds and taxable to them on withdrawal. The capital gains will come from selling those overvalued stocks at higher prices, which the funds pass on to its members. Instead of cash, many baby boomers will be stuck with a tax bill for capital gains they never received. You've heard of phantom taxes. Remember, the tax man always gets the money first. Simultaneously, the health of millions of poorer baby boomers will begin to fail because poor people historically have worse health than affluent people. Medicare will be bankrupt, and the cry for more government support will go up in cities all across America. Add to this the eclipsing of America by China as the nation with the largest GDP and the trend toward pushing services such as accounting, information technology, and telesales to nations such as India, and it becomes clear that wages will have to come down or productivity must skyrocket in order to meet the challenges of the rapidly changing global marketplace. Boom, shake the room on this one. This was written 20 years ago. Think about this. This sounds like the news that people are waking up to in the morning. And yet this was happening 20 years ago. The next great transfer of wealth is taking place by ignorance. The industrial age's entitlement mentality of big government and big business should be on its way out. But here we are in the midst of the information age, and we are grasping old solutions to new world problems. Another boom. In 1989, the Berlin Wall came down. As stated earlier, in my opinion, That event was as significant as the year 1492, when Columbus bumped into the Americas in his search for Asia. In some circles, 1492 was the official beginning of the almost 500-year industrial age. The end was marked in 1989. The rules changed. History is a guide. My rich dad encouraged me to learn the game well. After I learned it well, I could do what I wanted with what I knew. I write and teach out of concern that more people need to know how to take care of themselves financially and not become dependent upon the government or a company for life support. I hope I'm wrong about what I see coming down the road economically. Maybe governments can keep making promises to take care of people, keep on raising taxes, and keep on going into greater debt. Maybe the stock market will always go up and never come down again. And maybe real estate prices will go up again and your home will become your best investment. And maybe millions of people will find happiness earning a minimum wage and be able to provide a good life for their family. Maybe this can all happen, but I don't think so. Not if history is any guide. Historically, if people live to be 75 years of age, they lived through 2 recessions and 1 depression. As baby boomers, we have gone through 3 recessions, and some question whether we are entering another depression. Maybe there will never be one, but history says there will. As the saying goes, if your neighbor loses his job, it's a recession. If you lose your job, it's a depression. And watch what's happening to unemployment right now. The reason my rich dad had me read books on the greater capitalists and the economists was so I could gain a longer view and a better perspective on where we have to come from and where we are going. Just as there are waves in the ocean, there are great waves in the markets. Instead of the wind and sun driving the waves of the ocean, the waves of financial markets are driven by 2 human emotions, fear and greed. I don't think that depressions are things of the past, because we will always have those emotions of greed and fear. And when greed and fear collide and a person loses badly, the next human emotion is depression. Depression is made up of anger and sadness, anger with oneself and sadness over the loss. Economic depressions are emotional depressions. People lose and they get depressed. Even when the economy appears to be in great shape, there are millions of people who are in various stages of depression right now. They may have a job, but deep down they know they are not getting ahead financially. They are angry at themselves and sad over their loss of time. Little do they know that they have been trapped by the industrial age idea of find a safe job, find a safe, secure job, and don't worry about the future. P.S. We've seen this entire year with the 11,000 federal employees that got laid off. How about all the federal employees right now that are in a state of limbo, facing possible cutbacks? And that was seen as the safest job on the planet. Then you have a lot of major companies that have been dialing things back. And then the last thing I want to add to that is, what about all the people who bought the lie that they have been saying that don't worry about your job? AI won't take your job. Only people who use AI will take your job. Well, I'll tell you that even in my business, we have increased our productivity and eliminated the need for I'm going to say, if it isn't half a dozen jobs because of AI, and it's coming. So appropriately so, we continue. A great change means opportunity. We are entering an era of tremendous change and opportunity. For some people, it will be the best of times. For others, it will be the worst of times. As President John Kennedy once said, a great change is at hand. Kennedy came from the right side of the cash flow quadrant. He was born into the right side. Back in the 1960s, he tried desperately to elevate the lives of those stuck in a time warp. Unfortunately, decades later, millions of people are still trapped in these time warps, following ideas that were handed down from past generations, ideas such as go to school so you can find a secure job. While education is more important than ever before, we need to be teaching people to think a little farther than just looking for a secure job and expecting the company or the government to look after them once their working days are through. That is an industrial age idea, and we are not there anymore. I'm going to wrap it up right there. It's 10:30, 10:31. We've got a few more pages to go, but we won't be able to wrap that up. Or actually, it's not that far back. 213, and we were on 207. What do you guys think? Out of respect of time, I can leave it right there. There's a period at the end of the page. We can pick up on 208 next week. Or does anybody want to finish the chapter? Drop it in the chat.
Oh, I think we can discuss, or if it's one, what is it? One more page?
No, it's 6 more pages.
6 more pages.
6 more pages
Yeah.
to finish chapter 9. Or
I
we can
think
leave.
since our events have changed a little bit, Eric. Yeah, let the audience decide if they want to dive in a little bit more until we finish the chapter, or we can have a great discussion on this what you just talked about right now. All the changes, things are changing so rapidly that I mean, people are losing their minds because of the fear of AI, tariffs, and things are just right now out of proportion, and they have always been. We just got to be more prepared and seeing things with our mind more than our eyes. Most people see things with their eyes than they do their mind. That's why a lot of people that don't understand money, they see a nice purse, a beautiful car, a depreciating asset, and they go spend all their dollars doing those things instead of seeing things differently, which is with the mind. Money is a tool, is not a weapon. People try to get rid of it. Like I want that, and they put their money in depreciating assets. And we all make mistakes like that. I made mistakes like that before, buying beautiful cars, expensive depreciating asset. And you get to think about it like, why did I purchase this car? I mean, I could drive any other car and rather, put finances into good debt rather than depreciating debt. So we learn the hard way sometimes, Eric, including with taxes.
Yeah, no, everybody makes mistakes, and that's part of learning. And one of the things that smart people do is try to make lots of little bets, and be able to learn from lots of little bets to then be able to make big bets in the right way, educated bets. So that's kind of what's going on, and the changes are sweeping. The reason I switched, to the page, I wanted to go back to look. This book was first written in 1998, and I think I have the first edition published back in 1998, which makes that book 26 years old. This edition that we're talking about was it was last updated in 2011, which is basically 15 years ago. So a lot of this information is time proven. And in fact, one of the skills that people like Elon Musk, Robert Kiyosaki, leaders have the ability to have a longer view. They don't just play for the day, they play for the year, then they play for the decade, and they see things coming. And it was kind of like an analogy that one of my friends told me, that you could be standing on the corner and all of a sudden 2 cars collide. And man, I didn't see that coming. And you're shocked and you're, jolted. If you were on the first floor of the building on that corner, you might have seen, if you were paying attention, you might have seen the two cars coming, not slowing down, headed for a collision at the intersection. Leaders are up on the 10th or the 30th floor, and they're watching two cars coming from a long distance coming towards that, and they can see that, predict it, maybe avoid it. So that's kind of the idea of what this book is giving you, the insight by taking these rules, because the cash flow quadrants haven't changed in 26 years, 28 years. The
Yeah.
concepts are the same. And a lot of what he's talking about, how many times have we heard people say, go to school, get good grades, get a safe and secure job, and you'll be okay. And 80% of Americans find out that that's a dead end lie.
It makes sense. I think, Eric, what we're going to give is a gift to everyone that is here today. If you guys haven't gotten the opportunity to see things in a different perspective of how times are changing, I remember, Eric, when email came out, when Yahoo, AOL, and Google, right? I mean, times have changed, and we felt so confident with Google, which exploded everything else to be able to find information. But now, Eric, there's two platforms, and you led us to one months ago. I think it was probably about a year ago, which is Chat GPT. And the other one that I'm giving out today is Grok, created by Elon Musk, Grok. So if you look at those two platforms, it's like seeing back in the day Google search and things like that. So Grok is it's got more images. It's Elon Musk, how he thinks, right? So he wanted, I guess, to create a little competition with Chat GPT. But these two tools are going to allow you, as an example that you use today, Eric, to see things from a broader perspective. Like now, if you're in a higher building, you can see those two cars crashing, and you can see it ahead of time, rather than just being right down there, right, with everyone else. Well, all you hear is the collapse, or maybe you just saw that you didn't expect that coming. I think the tools that we need to comply with today are AI. Make AI your friend. The other day, Martha, my wife, was thinking I was talking to someone, and I was having a conversation, deep dive conversation with this new tool, which is Grok, and it gives you everything you want to know ahead of time, and it gives you a roadmap. You can even print whatever you ask for, and it'll give it to you in detailed. So it gets to know you, and once you start to have a conversation and engage a relationship with AI is going to be your assistant. So I just wanted to throw that out there, Eric.
Yeah, very cool. And the more you play, and remember, AI is a tool, right? And I should say Chat GPT is a tool. Grok is, Gemini is, and there's more and more coming online, so you can actually even get different perspectives. But do you know that people are now practicing sales calls on Chat GPT? You can give it the scenario and then say, ask me questions, come up with objections. So you can make yourself so much better. Such a great, great tool that, like I said, everyone is going to be using AI. My 12-year-old son uses AI to do his homework. And at first, I was like, that's not a good thing, is it? Because isn't that cheating? But when he didn't know something, Chat GPT could actually teach him how to do the thing that he had a question about. And so the exercise, in today's there's no those in real life. Life is not a closed book test. It's an open book test. The
Exactly.
information that we need, who needs an encyclopedia set anymore? I've got Google, and Google is now being replaced by Chat GPT.
Wow, that's impressive. It's impressive. I mean, you know, and people fear. The thing is, when you fear things like that, lots of people, what I hear saying, oh, it's the end of the world. It's the end of a time that needs to change so we can move faster and do things faster and get to the other side quicker and have more tools and resources for us to be able to have everything else do the work for us and enjoy our lives. That's the objective of what I see happening with all these changes. Instead of being fearful, get to know the tools, collaborate with it, and put them to work. I mean, that's why this the school system, right? Since this year started with the new president, they want to make some changes. Lots of people are against it, but I think the changes are going to be needed because of how things are starting to become so easy to find that you don't need a teacher really teaching you anything. You can go out and find your tools to be able to learn from life and be educated by the tools and the resources. So I don't know. I'm not trying to contradict the system, Eric. I'm just collaborating with it, trying to understand things a little bit better.
Yeah, and try to get to the 10th floor of the building so that you can see the changes and then optimize and then capitalize. You see, all it happens is, AI will make incompetent people appear more competent, more or less competent, and AI will make competent people look more competent. So it's really more of a magnifying glass, if you look at it the same way. Money, doesn't make people good or bad. It makes bad people badder or meaner. It makes good people more generous and appear nicer. So these are all just tools that that you can use, and then just ask yourself, how can this help me achieve whatever my goals are? Because it all comes back to, what
Yep.
is the objective? What is your goal? And change
Well,
is an opportunity.
it sure is. I love you put a link that she uses AI, AIM Marketing Solutions dot info. Okay.
Man,
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
this is
All
Ron.
right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nope, no problem. Just adding to your AI conversation. If you remember in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill created a whole mastermind of various people. They were imaginary, but he would ask them questions. Inside of ChatGPT and AI, you can create what's called agents, as many as you,
Mm.
as I understand, and you can give them a role to play. Tell them how they're supposed to act, such as, I want you to act as if you're Benjamin Franklin or John F. Kennedy or any of those people. And then you can ask them to be your board of directors or your mastermind, and go in
Wow.
there and actually create your own mastermind with Chat GPT. I thought that to be phenomenal.
Wow.
Amazing.
I'm
Amazing.
telling
So
you.
we don't even know yet all the things that we're going to be able to do with AI, and what it will do for us. And you know you know how can AI make your life better?
Yep.
That's it.
In fact, tomorrow or Monday, I have a real problem with some computer program, and I think I've solved it. I just don't know how to put it to work yet. And I'm giving to my tech support people the answer to the question and tell them, hey, now go do this, because I researched it last night to find it, figure it out, because they didn't know it either.
Mm. We got the
Amazing.
tools, we got the resources. We got to learn to ask the right questions, though.
And nothing replaces implementation and action
Yeah.
so far.
So
So,
next
anyone
week,
else? Go ahead, Eric.
yeah, no, I was saying, so next week we're going to start right here at page 208, because we finished 207. We'll have 6 pages left to finish chapter 9. And then we get into chapter 10. how to become a successful BNI. So we're now in part 3 of the book, and this is where the rubber really hits the road. So you're definitely not going to want to miss the next few weeks of reading. Again, I had put the PDF of this in the chat. I'm going to put it again. I also put, for those of you, I talk about a lot of this stuff in my radio show, which is called The Real Estate Show. And it's all about real estate as an investment vehicle, as an opportunity. But really, real estate is just another business. It's another B. And a lot of the concepts, a lot of the ideas are applicable across the board to all businesses. So I'm put again the link to the PDF in the chat for those of you who want to go back and read some things that they missed, or just to be ready for next Saturday. So on that note, my friend, let me pass the baton and the microphone back to Mr. Fernando Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Eric Wilner. I took a lot of notes today, and I'm hoping everyone felt the same experience to be able to learn from one another. I love the reading, Eric, but I love the dialogue too, because it gives us accuracy, and not only put this into good use, right? Because lots of people will still be in the E quadrant, employee, S quadrant, self-employed. So it is up to us to be able to lead them in the right direction, do an invitation without any type of trying to get them into selling them something or recruiting them into something. Just get them in the conversation. I would love for all of us next Saturday to double the numbers. By inviting one person, we can have 30 people next Saturday. I mean, who's taking some great content today that you can put into good use? Put it in the chat and say put number 1. If you're taking great content today, that you can put it into good use, so you can start feeling better about doing invites for all of our events that we have. So thanks again, Eric. Appreciate you all. That's what I'm talking about. Jameson, 1. All right. And then everybody, Elisa, Lovey. So you all provide so much, energy, commitment. Eric, Dr. G.W. Parker. We appreciate each and every one of you guys, because you guys represent the community. So let's be proud into inviting others. We send out the invitation night before, so you can select a handful of people or send it out to friends or even strangers. You don't know who you can impact by making them a part of our community, because we are a voluntary army educating one another for prosperity. Sarah, 1. All right. You provided something too, Sarah. I'm going to read that. She even highlighted this with bold letters. Grok and ChatGPT are both advanced AI chatbots, but they differ significantly in architecture, personality, capabilities, and integration. Grok emphasizes real-time, witty, I don't know what that means, and unfiltered responses, while ChatGPT focuses on versatility, reliability, and deep reasoning. Wow. Amazing stuff. I'm telling you, see, you taught us something now. So now we know the difference between one and the other. All right. So yeah, we're definitely taking a lot with us today. So ladies and gentlemen, we do have an event in about an hour and 10 minutes from our company leaders. Let's make sure to invite folks, because our company is moving with AI too. Our CEO does not need a Spanish translator anymore. We just tested that with AI. So he's doing his own the materials of the company using the AI tools. So definitely we are headed in the right direction. All right. On that note, thank you so much, Eric, once again. And we'll see you guys later in the next hour and 10 minutes with guests. All right. So we're done. See you all in an hour and 10 minutes. Microphones are open, cameras are open too.
Hey, one quick question. I'm just curious because I did flip over. Lovey had shared also an AI tool. Lovey, tell us a little bit about what that tool is.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning, Lovey. How are you?
Lovey.
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a comprehensive marketing tool for business owners, small business owners, network marketers, anyone who running a business. Helps them to market, create social media posts. You can create your own websites, link to landing pages. Everything is hosted. Well, it's all basically comes with the package. You get CRM, your customer relations management. What else? It's going to have AI twins by the end of this month, where you actually where you can speak to other countries in their language, or even local, in the United States, you can speak in another language through the AI twin. You can give it your presentations. It can do your presentations for you in whatever language you need it to be in. So it can be presenting 24 hours a day around the world while you're sleeping. What else?
So I have it up on screen. It takes me to this Lev AI.
Right, stands for leverage AI.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then the first question, there's a pop-up that says, "Are you a pre-enroll partner looking to complete your enrollment?"
Yeah, they had a pre-launch enrollment. If you enrolled in, you enroll for free. Then now you can go in and pay for your membership, your packages.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So you can just click on the X button and it'll close that box.
Thanks for sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lovey. Eric, it looks like we're not going to need that tool that we have somewhere there. I was thinking about that the other day. That little tool, that little gadget that it's kind of starting to look a little bit old style with all this new stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Networker Central?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely want to have a conversation about that. We can do that obviously offline.
Sure. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. I'm taking a lot with me today. I'm telling you, see, the younger generation is teaching the older generation like us to comply with all these tools and be flexible to learn. Don't fear the tools. Take advantage, make all the mistakes as quick as possible, because once you get to the other side of what we got going on right now, I'm telling you, we're going to be like kids in a candy store.
Hey, Fernando.
Right.
Hey, Fernando.
Hey, yes. Yeah. James.
My 5 closest friends going to be, one of them's going to be an AI. Now we get to go electronic friends too, because they're out there. But Ron pulling in like, hey, we can create our own mastermind. I've never heard of that. That's just crazy. The day the universe changed, every time something comes new, as long as we, like you're saying, roll with it. And I think there's a comment by someone talking about like people that talk to your friends. Some friends talk about the past. They live in the past and through the past. Billionaires talk about the next greatest deal. So they're future focused. And if you're not willing to adapt and roll with things and take advantage of the opportunities, you're going to be left behind. And AI is another example of that.
Most definitely. Yeah, let's comply with the tools and the resources, ladies and gentlemen, because we definitely can create a mastermind out of tools now. And people will think whatever, but don't fear. If it gives you leverage, take advantage of the opportunity. I think every person that has achieved tremendous success was viewed as a crazy person first, until they moved to the other side. Oh, we needed those tools, right? You're not viewed as a crazy person anymore. You're viewed as an intelligent choice maker by moving forward with your dreams. All right, so take care, everyone. We'll see you all in a bit. Bye.